There's a Bugatti idling outside a coffee shop in Dubai, painted white and green, with the word police written across the door. It can hit 253 miles per hour. It has 1,000 horsepower and 16 cylinders, and it will out-accelerate almost anything else on the planet. Guinness World Records has certified it as the fastest police car ever put into service. And here's the part nobody tells you. It has almost never chased anyone. So how did the single fastest police car on Earth end up being a car that barely does police work at all? Stick around, because the answer is stranger and smarter than it sounds, and if you like stories where the obvious fact turns out to be the least interesting thing about it, subscribe now, because that's the whole channel. Let's start with the machine itself. The car is a Bugatti Veyron, not a modified Bugatti. Not a police-tuned special, a standard hypercar with lights bolted on and a badge on the flank. Underneath sits an 8-liter engine arranged in a W shape, 16 cylinders in total, force-fed by 4 turbochargers. The output is around 1,000 horsepower. It reaches 60 miles per hour from a standstill in roughly 2.5 seconds, which is quicker than most people can read this sentence. And its top speed, the number that earned it a place in the record books, is 253 miles per hour. To put that in plain terms, if this car and a typical highway patrol cruiser lined up on a runway, the Bugatti would cross 2 miles of tarmac before the cruiser finished the first. Dubai police took ownership of it around 2014, and a couple of years later a delegation from Guinness World Records handed the force an official certificate confirming what everyone already suspected. No police force anywhere operates a faster car. That fact is real. It's verified, it's documented, and it is not the interesting part. Because the moment you know how fast the car is, a much better question appears. Why does a police force own it at all? Think about what a police car actually has to do. It has to be reliable enough to run for 12-hour shifts. It needs space in the back for equipment, for a partner, sometimes for a suspect. It needs to survive being driven hard, day after day, by dozens of different officers, in traffic, in heat, over curbs. The Bugatti Veyron offers none of that. It's a 2-seat hypercar, with a luggage space barely big enough for a briefcase. Its tires are so specialized they have to be replaced on a strict schedule, and a full set can cost as much as a small family car. Its servicing costs more than many people's vehicles are worth in total. It reportedly carries 10 separate radiators just to keep its engine from cooking itself. Whatever this car was engineered for, patrolling a city was not it. And that's the contradiction at the center of this whole story. The fastest police car ever built is, by almost every practical measure, one of the worst possible police cars you could choose. So either Dubai police made an extraordinarily expensive mistake, or they were never trying to buy a police car in the first place. It's the second one. And once you understand why, the entire idea of what a police car is supposed to do starts to shift under your feet. Here's what's really going on. Dubai police didn't buy the Veyron to catch criminals. They bought it to be seen. The car spends its time parked in the places where tourists gather outside luxury hotels, near shopping districts, along the famous stretches of road, where visitors come specifically to look at expensive machinery. And that's the job. That is the entire function. People walk up to it, they take photographs, they stand next to an officer and a hypercar, and they smile. And in that moment, the relationship between the public and the police becomes something friendlier than it usually is. A senior Dubai police official put the strategy plainly, describing the goal as breaking down barriers, making officers approachable, showing that the force is something people can feel comfortable around, rather than afraid of. When someone posts a photo of a police Bugatti online, that image travels across the world for free, and it tells a very specific story about the city that owns it. This is a modern place, a wealthy place, a place that does nothing halfway. The car is not a tool for enforcement. It's a tool for persuasion. It's advertising with a siren. And there's a deeper logic to it than you might expect, because you have to understand what Dubai actually sells. The city's entire economy leans on tourism, luxury, and reputation. It has spent decades building an image as a place of impossible wealth and near-total safety, and it competes with the whole world for visitors and investment. In that context, a police force that patrols in Bugattis and Lamborghinis reinforces 2 messages at once. It says the streets here are so safe that officers can afford to spend an afternoon posing for photos rather than fighting crime, and it says the city is so rich that even the police drive machines most billionaires will never own. You could spend millions on a conventional advertising campaign trying to plant those 2 ideas in people's heads, or you could park a hypercar with a badge outside a 5-star hotel and let 1,000 tourists plant it for you, one selfie at a time. Seen that way, the Veyron stops looking like an irrational splurge and starts looking like a coldly efficient piece of marketing. The car pays for itself in attention, and the force leans into that hard. The supercars are rolled out for public events, put on display at exhibitions, and paraded at gatherings where the world's police and press are watching, including the major international policing summit the city now hosts. At events like that, the fleet isn't hunting anyone. It's the centerpiece of a show, a way for Dubai to stand in front of law enforcement leaders from dozens of countries and say, "This is who we are." The cars are ambassadors in the most literal sense. Now, if you're finding this as strange as I did the first time I looked into it, do me a favor and drop a comment with what you think is a multi-million-dollar hypercar, a brilliant piece of public relations, or a ridiculous waste of money. I genuinely want to see where people land, because there's a real argument on both sides, and the Veyron isn't even alone. It's the crown jewel of an entire fleet of supercars wearing police livery. Dubai police have run Lamborghinis, Ferraris, an ultra-rare Aston Martin of which only 77 were ever made, McLarens, Bentleys, Audis, and more. But the fleet also tells you where the city thinks the future is going. In recent years, they've added electric machines, sleek luxury EVs, and even an angular, all-electric pickup that looks like it drove out of a science fiction film. That's not an accident either. As Dubai pushes an image of a green, high-tech, forward-looking city, the police fleet updates to match the message. An electric supercar with a badge says something a gasoline Bugatti can't, that the city sees itself at the front edge of what's coming next. The combined value of all these vehicles runs well into the millions, and not one of them was folded into the fleet primarily to win a chase. They exist to be photographed, to appear at exhibitions and tourism events, to greet visitors, to turn the very idea of a police force into something glamorous and modern. In most of the world, a police car is a warning. In Dubai, the supercar fleet is closer to a welcome mat, and that reframes the record entirely. When Guinness calls the Veyron the fastest police car in service, that's technically true, but it quietly hides the fact that the speed was never the point. The car could do 253 miles per hour, and the department bought it anyway, not because of that number, but almost in spite of it. The speed is the headline. The parking spot outside a hotel is the actual job. But this raises an even more interesting question, and it's the one that turns this from a fun fact into a real story. If the fastest police car ever built isn't actually built to chase anyone, then what does a police car look like when speed genuinely is the point? Because those cars exist too. And their story is the exact opposite of a Bugatti parked for selfies. To find them, you have to go back decades, to a time when police top speed wasn't a marketing figure but a matter of whether an officer could physically catch the car in front of them. In fact, the whole tradition of even measuring a police car's top speed has a specific origin. Back at the end of the 1950s, American police agencies started running their candidate cars flat out on airfield runways to see what they could really do. They would line up a Dodge, a Mercury, a Pontiac, and clock each one over a high-speed run. The differences were dramatic. In one of those early trials, a Dodge cleared over 120 miles per hour and beat its rivals outright, while the others trailed a few miles per hour behind. That same Dodge also won the standing start sprints, pulling away from the pack the moment the tires bit. Results like that, combined with good fleet pricing, were enough to win a contract and put a particular car in patrol livery across a whole state. This was the birth of the idea that a police car's speed was a hard, testable number rather than a bragging point, a figure you proved on a runway with a stopwatch, not one you claimed in a brochure. And it set the stage for everything that followed. Now picture the roads of California at the end of the 1960s. The state was filling up with fast cars and endless freeways, and the highway patrol had a genuine problem. The vehicles they were chasing were getting quicker than the vehicles they were driving. Their answer was a car called the Dodge Polara, and in its pursuit configuration it was a monster. Under the hood sat a 440 cubic inch big block V8, an engine so large it's difficult to even picture next to a modern motor. That car could reportedly reach around 150 miles per hour, at a time when that figure was almost unheard of for a working vehicle. This was not a car built to be admired in a parking lot. It was built to run down a fleeing driver on an open freeway, and it was very good at exactly that. A former patrolman once described that era of big Dodge pursuit cars as the best police vehicles ever made, and the reason was simple. Every single part of the car served the chase. The engine was enormous because the job demanded it. The construction was heavy and tough because it had to survive being thrown around at high speed. There was nothing decorative about it. It was a purpose-built tool, and the purpose was speed with consequences. Then something happened that almost nobody connects to police cars at all. In the 1970s, tightening emissions laws and a pair of fuel crises hit the American auto industry hard, and the big muscle car engines that had powered those pursuit cars were strangled almost out of existence. Compression dropped, power figures collapsed, and the family sedans that police departments bought their cruisers from became slow, heavy, and breathless. This wasn't a small dip either. Some of the engines that had made serious power in the 60s were putting out a fraction of that by the middle of the 70s, choked by early pollution controls that the technology of the day couldn't yet manage cleanly. Police cars got dramatically slower, right at the moment when sports cars from Europe and Japan were getting dramatically faster. By the early 1980s, officers were watching Porsches and Ferraris and even hot hatchbacks simply pull away from them, and the standard patrol sedan had no answer at all. It was an arms race, and for about a decade the police were losing it badly. So Ford built a fix. They took a Mustang, stripped out the weight and the luxury, and turned it into a purpose-built pursuit car known as the Special Service Package. It wasn't comfortable, and it wasn't roomy. It existed for one reason: to give an officer a fighting chance against something quick. It could actually keep up with the fast traffic of its era, and it became a quiet legend among the people who study these cars, precisely because it was born out of raw necessity rather than image. Then came what might be the most extreme working police car America ever produced. In the 1990s, Chevrolet built a police specification version of the Camaro, and this thing could reportedly crack 160 miles per hour. That made it, at the time, the fastest production police car ever built, a car genuinely capable of running down the supercars of its day. And notice the difference. Nobody ordered that Camaro to park it outside a hotel for photographs. A department somewhere needed to physically catch things that were very, very fast, and this was the tool that could do it. This is the split that sits at the heart of the whole fastest police car question, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. There are two completely different meanings hiding inside that single phrase. One meaning is, which police car has the highest number on a spec sheet? By that measure, the Dubai Bugatti wins without contest. Nothing else in official police livery comes anywhere near 253 miles per hour. But the other meaning is, which police car was actually built to use its speed to catch someone? And by that measure, the Bugatti isn't even in the conversation. The real answers are cars like the Polara and the Camaro, machines where every design decision flowed from the demands of a real pursuit. One is the fastest police car by title. The others were the fastest police cars by function. And here's where the story gets genuinely surprising, because you might assume that working pursuit cars have kept getting faster ever since. They haven't. And we don't have to guess about that, because there's an organization that has been measuring it, carefully and independently, for about 70 years. In the American state of Michigan, the state police run an annual evaluation of police vehicles that dates all the way back to the 1950s. It grew out of exactly that early runway testing tradition, and over the decades it became the closest thing the industry has to an unbiased referee. Every year, their precision driving team takes the newest patrol vehicles from the major manufacturers to a proving ground and puts them through the same battery of tests: acceleration, braking, handling on a road course, and flat-out top speed. Their equipment evolved from tape measures and stopwatches to satellite-based instruments, and their published results are trusted and studied by law enforcement agencies around the world. Manufacturers compete hard to top those charts because a strong showing in the Michigan tests helps sell cars to departments everywhere. So this is about as authoritative a scorecard as exists. And here's what those tests reveal. In the most recent results, the fastest pursuit-rated vehicle they measured, a Ford police utility model, topped out at around 148 miles per hour. That's the fastest one. Not an average, the peak. Now hold that number next to the 1969 Dodge Polara, which reportedly did about 150. More than half a century of engineering progress. And the fastest working police car in a rigorous modern test is, if anything, a hair slower than a big block Dodge from the 60s. Think about how strange that is. In almost every other field, the tools have gotten faster over 50 years. Police pursuit speed has essentially flatlined, and in some measures gone slightly backwards. And that isn't a failure of engineering. Manufacturers could easily build a faster patrol car if departments demanded it. It's a deliberate choice, and the reason behind it is grim. High-speed pursuits turn out to be extraordinarily dangerous, often more dangerous than whatever crime started them. Independent investigations in the United States have found that police chases kill hundreds of people every year, and that a large share of the dead are not the fleeing suspects at all. They're passengers, other drivers, and pedestrians, people who had nothing to do with the chase and simply happened to be nearby. Study after study has put the bystander share of these deaths at roughly a third, which is a staggering figure when you sit with it. A chase to stop one reckless driver can end with an uninvolved family destroyed at an intersection they had every right to cross safely. And these aren't abstract statistics. There have been chases that began over something minor, a stolen car, a driver who ran a stop sign and ended with a speeding vehicle plowing into an innocent family, killing children who were simply riding to a sports game. In more than one case, the officer had no idea how serious the underlying crime was until it was far too late. The math, when departments finally sat down to do it, was brutal. The benefit of catching one fleeing driver on the spot weighed against the risk of killing bystanders at 80 or 90 miles per hour through a populated area, often came out on the wrong side. Interestingly, the law itself hasn't forced departments in this direction. When the question reached the United States Supreme Court in 2007, in a case where an officer had ended a chase by ramming a fleeing driver who was left paralyzed, the court sided firmly with the police. In an 8-1 decision, it ruled that an officer's attempt to stop a dangerous high-speed chase does not violate a fleeing suspect's constitutional rights, even when it puts that driver at risk of serious injury or death. In other words, the courts gave police wide latitude to pursue. And yet, even with that legal freedom, departments have increasingly chosen to hold back on their own, because the courtroom question and the moral question turned out to be different things. Being allowed to chase is not the same as it being wise to. So, over the past couple of decades, police forces across America and beyond have quietly moved in the opposite direction from speed. Many departments now restrict pursuits to only the most serious violent crimes. Some forbid chasing over minor offenses entirely. The guidance from national authorities increasingly pushes officers to weigh the danger of the chase against the danger of letting the suspect go, and more often, the answer is to back off. Instead of flooring it, forces now lean on helicopters, on tracking technology, on license plate readers, on simply noting who the driver is, and making a calm arrest later, when nobody has to die for it. Which means the top speed of a patrol car has become less relevant to real policing, not more. The number that sounds the most impressive on paper is the number that matters least on the street. That's why those Michigan test results look the way they do. The departments buying those cars aren't asking for 200 miles per hour. They're asking for reliability, for space, for braking, for something that can handle a busy road safely, and a top speed of around 140 is simply more than enough for the rare, tightly controlled situations where speed still matters. And that is what makes the Bugatti Veyron such a perfect object, almost a piece of accidental art. It takes a measurement that policing has largely moved past raw top speed and pushes it to a ridiculous, world record extreme, purely as a statement. It isn't lying about being fast. It really is that fast. It's just that the speed is theater. The car is a 253 mile per hour exclamation point on a sentence that's actually about image, tourism, and the way a modern city wants the world to see it. The fastest police car on earth is fast in exactly the way that policing, everywhere else, has decided no longer counts for much. There's an almost poetic symmetry to it. The working police world spent 50 years concluding that top speed is the least important thing a patrol car can have. And Dubai took that exact discarded quality and turned it into the centerpiece of a global publicity machine. What one world threw away, the other put in a trophy case. So let's return to where we started, to that Bugatti idling outside a coffee shop with police on the door. When you first see it, it looks like the ultimate crime-fighting machine, the fastest thing any officer has ever been handed. But the truth is almost the reverse. It's the fastest police car ever built precisely because it was freed from having to be a real police car. It never has to chase anyone, so it can be absurd. It never has to haul equipment or survive a double shift or ram through a barricade, so it can be a delicate, hand-built hypercar. The very things that make it useless for patrol are the things that allowed it to claim the record in the first place. The genuinely fast police cars, the ones that earned their speed in pursuit, the Polara, the Mustang, the Camaro, were compromised, practical, heavy, purpose-built machines that topped out 100 miles per hour slower and did far more actual police work. And the fastest patrol car in the world that anyone still tests seriously tops out at around 148, because that's all the job actually needs. The Veyron holds the crown not by winning that race, but by refusing to enter it. It's the most honest, dishonest police car in history. Completely truthful about its speed. And completely upfront. Once you look closely, about the fact that speed was never why it was bought. It's a world record, and a magic trick at the same time. And maybe that's the most telling thing of all. The fastest police car ever built tells you almost nothing about catching criminals, but it tells you a great deal about how a modern city wants to be seen. Somewhere in the last 50 years, the job of the fastest police car quietly changed from winning a chase to winning attention, and the Bugatti is simply the purest expression of that shift. The record didn't measure the best pursuit car. It measured the most extravagant statement, and Dubai understood that perfectly. If a police force can turn a hypercar into a handshake, then the real currency of that fleet was never horsepower. It was image, and image, it turns out, is the one thing a Bugatti can chase down better than anything else on the road. If you found the twist as satisfying as I did, subscribe and stick around. The next story digs into another famous machine that turns out to be nothing like what it appears to be. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.